On a serene afternoon, as the sun began its descent, casting golden rays over the hills, Jesus gathered his disciples on a gentle slope overlooking the vibrant landscape. The air was alive with the sounds of nature, and the warmth of the sun seemed to embrace them. However, the faces of the disciples reflected concerns that weighed heavily on their hearts: feelings of isolation, uncertainty, and the longing for deeper connections. Noticing their somber expressions, Jesus began to weave a story, one that would illuminate their hearts and minds. Once, in a small village nestled between two mountains, lived a woman named Lila. He began, his voice calm and soothing. Lila was known for her kindness, always ready to help others. However, despite her many friends, she often felt a profound loneliness deep within her heart. She longed for connections that went beyond the surface, relationships that filled her spirit with joy. The disciples listened intently, their own experiences of seeking connection echoing in Lila's story. One day, Jesus continued, Lila decided to climb the mountain that loomed over her village. She believed that if she reached the top, she would find answers to her feelings of isolation. As she ascended, she encountered an old man sitting by a stream, his eyes sparkling with wisdom. Intrigued, Lila approached him. The disciples leaned in closer, eager to hear what happened next. The old man welcomed her warmly. "What brings you here, young one?" he asked, his voice gentle. Lila sighed. "I feel alone even among friends. I seek a deeper connection, but I don't know how to find it." Jesus paused, letting the weight of Lila's words sink in. The old man smiled knowingly. "Ah, my dear, connection is not found at the peak of a mountain but in the hearts of those around you. Let me share a story with you." The disciples exchanged knowing glances, resonating with the quest for connection. The old man began, "Many years ago, there lived a woman named Miriam in a neighboring village. She was known for her kindness, but she too felt isolated despite the many people around her. One day she decided to host a gathering in her home, inviting everyone she knew to share a meal and stories. She hoped that by bringing people together she could forge deeper connections." Jesus continued, his voice imbued with emotion. As the day of the gathering arrived, Miriam prepared a feast, pouring her heart into the meal. When her guests arrived, she welcomed them with open arms, encouraging them to share their experiences and dreams. As they dined together, laughter filled the air and stories flowed like wine. The disciples felt a wave of hope as they absorbed this lesson in connection. However, Jesus said, as the evening progressed, Miriam noticed that some guests were hesitant to open up, afraid of being vulnerable. Sensing their discomfort, she shared her own struggles, the loneliness she felt despite being surrounded by people. Her honesty created a ripple effect. One by one, her guests began to share their own stories of isolation and longing for connection. Jesus paused, watching the expressions on his disciples' faces. In that moment, something beautiful happened. The barriers that separated them began to dissolve, replaced by a shared understanding of their humanity. They laughed together, cried together, and in doing so, forged bonds that would last a lifetime. As Jesus concluded the story, he looked at his disciples, his eyes reflecting compassion and wisdom. "You see, my friends, social connection is a beautiful dance of vulnerability, trust, and sharing. It is about creating spaces where hearts can meet. Like Miriam, when you share your true self, you invite others to do the same. In that vulnerability, true connections are formed." The disciples felt a sense of warmth envelop them, the weight of their loneliness lifting as they absorbed Jesus' words. "In your own lives," Jesus continued, "remember that connection often begins with a simple act of openness. Don't be afraid to share your dreams, your fears, and your joys. In doing so, you will find others who resonate with your spirit, and together, you will create a community of support and love." With hearts filled with hope, the disciples reflected on their journeys. They realized that by opening up to one another, they could cultivate deeper connections, enriching their lives and the lives of those around them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the landscape. The disciples shared their own stories, their voices rising like a chorus of understanding. Laughter mingled with tears as they connected through their vulnerabilities, each moment deepening their bond. In that sacred space they found joy, knowing they were no longer alone on their journeys. They had each other, a community united by love, understanding, and the wisdom imparted by Jesus. As they sat together under the stars, they felt the embrace of a deeper connection, the warmth of faith, and the promise of shared experiences. They understood that social connection was not just a longing but a vital part of life's journey, one that enriched their souls and filled their hearts with joy. In that moment, they pledged to nurture the seeds of connection within themselves and one another, forever grateful for the wisdom of Jesus and the beauty of their shared humanity. As the days turned into weeks, the lessons of connection began to manifest in the daily lives of the disciples. They took Jesus' words to heart, seeking opportunities to build deeper relationships with one another and with those they encountered. One evening, Peter approached Jesus with a heavy heart. "Master," he said, "I've noticed that some villagers are struggling. They seem distant and withdrawn. How can we help them?" Jesus smiled, recognizing the sincerity in Peter's eyes. Connection often starts with a simple act of kindness. Let's invite them to join us for a meal. Share your hearts with them, listen to their stories, and show them they are not alone. Inspired, Peter organized a gathering, inviting the villagers to share a meal. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, the aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air. Disciples and villagers alike came together, their hearts open to connection. During the meal, Peter and the others shared stories of their own struggles and triumphs. They spoke of moments of doubt, fear, and isolation, and how they found strength in one another. The villagers listened intently, their eyes lighting up as they began to see themselves in the shared experiences. As the evening progressed, an elderly woman named Miriam, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "I lost my husband last year," she shared, her voice trembling. "I felt so alone since then, even among friends. I didn't know how to reach out." At that moment, the warmth of empathy enveloped the gathering. "Miriam, you are not alone," Peter said gently. "We all carry burdens, and by sharing them we can lighten the load together." Moved by the connection in the room, Miriam began to share her story, recounting the love she had for her husband and the deep loneliness she felt after his passing. Tears flowed freely, but so did words of comfort and support from those around her. The vulnerability created a space where others began to share their own losses, their own fears, and their own desires for connection. As they listened and supported one another, something magical happened. The energy in the room shifted, and laughter began to mingle with tears. The villagers felt seen and heard for the first time in a long while. In that shared vulnerability, the seeds of connection began to grow. In the following weeks, the gatherings continued, evolving into a cherished tradition. The disciples and villagers met regularly to share meals, stories, and laughter. They created a safe space for vulnerability, where people could come to express their struggles and joys without fear of judgment. One evening, as the community gathered to admire Eli's latest artwork, a mural depicting the beauty of connection, Jesus joined them once more. He looked at Eli with pride. "You have transformed your pain into a source of inspiration for others. This is the power of connection, turning wounds into wisdom and darkness into light." As the seasons changed, so did the community. They celebrated harvest festivals, where they would gather to share the fruits of their labor. Each festival became an opportunity to reflect on their journeys, to honor those who had come before them, and to celebrate the connections they had formed. One harvest festival, as they prepared to feast, Jesus reminded them, "Remember to express gratitude for one another. Each connection you cultivate is a gift that enriches your lives. Nurture it and it will flourish." In the spirit of gratitude, the villagers began to share what they were thankful for. One by one, they spoke of the joy of friendship, the strength found in vulnerability, and the love that had blossomed in their hearts. As the years went by, the community continued to grow and thrive. They became known as a sanctuary of connection, drawing people from distant lands who sought solace and understanding. Jesus' teachings about vulnerability and openness became the foundation of their way of life. One day, a young man named Eli arrived, carrying the weight of his past on his shoulders. He had traveled far, seeking a place to heal from the scars of loss and rejection. Hesitant but hopeful, he approached the gathering, unsure of what to expect. Seeing Eli's uncertainty, Lila, who had grown in wisdom since her encounter with the old man, reached out to him. "Welcome, friend. You are safe here. Would you like to share your story with us?" Eli hesitated but felt the warmth of Lila's invitation. He began to speak of his struggles, of feeling unworthy and alone. As he shared his pain, he could see the understanding in the eyes of those around him. Their empathetic expressions made him feel less isolated, and he poured out his heart. As he spoke, tears fell freely, and the community surrounded him with love and acceptance. They embraced him, sharing their own stories of hardship, and in that moment, Eli felt a sense of belonging for the first time in his life. He understood that connection could heal wounds that felt too deep to mend. Days turned into weeks, and Eli became an integral part of the community. Inspired by their support, he began to express himself through art, creating pieces that reflected his journey. The villagers admired his work, and he found joy in sharing his creations with others. One evening, as the community gathered to admire Eli's latest artwork, Jesus joined them once more. He looked at Eli with pride. "You have transformed your pain into a source of inspiration for others. This is the power of connection, turning wounds into wisdom and darkness into light." As the community continued to flourish, they decided to create a festival dedicated to the theme of connection. They invited people from far and wide to join them in celebrating the bonds formed through vulnerability and love. They called it the Festival of Hearts. The day of the festival arrived, and the village was alive with anticipation. Colorful banners adorned the streets and laughter filled the air. People gathered to share their stories, talents, and gifts, creating a rich tapestry of connection. Jesus opened the festival, addressing the crowd with warmth. "Today we celebrate the beauty of our shared humanity. Remember that each story, each connection, is a thread that weaves us together. In our vulnerability lies our strength, and in our compassion lies our healing." The villagers and visitors shared songs, dances, and stories, each one echoing the theme of connection. Lila and Eli collaborated on a performance that combined storytelling and art, weaving together their journeys in a beautiful expression of vulnerability. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, people shared their hopes and dreams. They lit candles, each representing a connection they cherished. The flickering lights illuminated the faces of those present, creating a magical atmosphere filled with love and unity. As the festival came to a close, the community gathered in a circle, holding hands beneath the stars. They reflected on the journey they had taken together, grateful for the wisdom imparted by Jesus and the connections that had transformed their lives. "Let us carry this spirit of connection into the world," Lila said, her voice filled with conviction. "May we continue to nurture the seeds of kindness and vulnerability in our hearts, inviting others to join us on this journey." As they looked around at one another, the disciples felt a deep sense of joy and fulfillment. They had created a community where love flourished, where vulnerability was embraced, and where connections were cherished. In that moment, they understood the profound truth that Jesus had shared. Social connection is not merely a desire, it is a vital part of life's journey, enriching their souls and filling their hearts with joy. And so, hand in hand, they stood together, ready to face whatever the world might bring, knowing that in each other they had found a sanctuary of love, acceptance, and understanding. As the night deepened, they sang songs of gratitude and hope, their voices rising in harmony, a celebration of the beautiful tapestry they had woven together through connection. And as the stars twinkled above, they knew that their legacy of love and connection would endure for generations to come. In the years that followed, the Festival of Hearts became an annual tradition, drawing more and more people to the village. Each year, new stories emerged, new connections were formed, and the community continued to thrive. One year, a traveler named Naomi arrived, weary from her journey and seeking solace. She had heard whispers of the festival and the warmth of the village, and she felt compelled to join. However, as she entered the bustling gathering, she felt a familiar pang of fear of not belonging, of being alone in a crowd. But as she walked through the vibrant festival, she was greeted by smiles and open arms. Lila, noticing Naomi's hesitation, approached her with a warm smile. "Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Would you like to join us? We're sharing stories and creating art together." Naomi looked into Lila's kind eyes and felt a spark of hope. I would like that," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As the day unfolded, Naomi found herself surrounded by warmth and acceptance. She shared her story of loss and longing, and as she spoke, she felt the weight of her burdens begin to lift. The villagers listened with compassion, and she felt a sense of connection that she had longed for. Later in the festival, Naomi discovered a corner where people were painting murals. She picked up a brush and with each stroke she poured her emotions onto the canvas. The villagers gathered around, admiring her work, and they encouraged her to continue. "This is beautiful," one villager exclaimed. "It captures the essence of our connections." As Naomi painted, she began to feel a sense of belonging. The villagers asked her questions and she shared her dreams and fears, feeling the walls around her heart crumble. By the end of the festival, Naomi had not only created a stunning mural but had also formed deep connections with the villagers. She left the gathering filled with gratitude, realizing that she had found a new home, a place where her heart could heal and thrive. As the years went by, the spirit of connection continued to flourish in the village. Each new arrival brought fresh stories and perspectives, enriching the tapestry of their community. Lila and Eli took it upon themselves to mentor newcomers, sharing the lessons they had learned about vulnerability and the importance of embracing one another's stories. One day, Lila and Eli decided to organize a workshop focused on storytelling. They invited villagers to come together and share their experiences in a safe, nurturing environment. As they sat in a circle, the warmth of the fire crackling nearby, they began to share stories that had shaped their lives. With each story shared, the villagers felt a deeper connection to one another. They laughed, cried, and embraced the vulnerability that came with opening their hearts. Lila spoke of her journey up the mountain and the wisdom imparted by the old man, while Eli shared his experiences of finding healing through art. As the workshop progressed, the atmosphere became charged with empathy and understanding. Villagers who had once felt isolated began to forge connections with others who resonated with their struggles. They realized that their individual stories were part of a larger narrative, one of resilience, love, and hope. One day, a severe storm swept through the region, threatening the village. As the winds howled and the rain poured, the villagers gathered in the communal hall, concerned for their safety. Lila looked around at the faces of her friends and felt a surge of determination. "Together we can weather this storm," she said, her voice steady. "Let's share our stories and our strength. Let's remind one another that we are not alone." The villagers nodded in agreement, and as they settled in for the night, they began to share their stories. They spoke of past hardships and how they had found strength in one another. As they listened and supported each other, the fear that gripped them began to dissipate. When the storm finally passed, the villagers emerged to assess the damage. Their hearts sank as they saw fallen branches and scattered debris. But instead of despair, they rallied together, determined to rebuild. With each task, clearing debris, fixing homes, and planting new seeds, they found strength in their unity. They worked side by side, sharing laughter and stories, transforming what could have been a moment of despair into a testament of resilience. As the community healed, the villagers reflected on the power of their connections. They realized that the love they had cultivated allowed them to withstand any storm, both literal and metaphorical. One evening as the sun set over the village, Lila gathered everyone for a celebration. "Tonight we honor the strength of our community," she said, her heart full. "We have weathered storms together, and our connections have only grown stronger." The villagers lit candles, each one representing a connection they cherished. As they shared their hopes for the future, they felt the energy of love and support surrounding them. They sang songs of gratitude and joy, their voices rising in harmony. In that moment, they understood that the legacy of connection they had created would endure for generations to come. The Festival of Hearts would continue to be a celebration of their shared humanity, a reminder that in vulnerability lies strength, and in love lies healing. As the stars twinkled above, they felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. They had built a sanctuary of connection, where each person was valued and loved. Hand in hand, they stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that in each other they had found the true essence of community. And so, their story continued, a story of love, resilience, and the enduring power of social connection that would inspire others for years to come. This is end of the story. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.